And we're expecting to talk to Kirby Smart in the next hour, so we hope you'll stick around for that on this Good Friday. It's always great to welcome back to our show Phillip Stutts. The reason why it's so interesting that I think Phillip was the first person to come on the show many, many years ago and start talking about NIL and warning us of what was around the corner. And he has arrived again, this time to talk about what Alabama is doing. Phillip, first of all, good afternoon. Great to see you.
Paul, how you doing?
I can't remember, but I know we did a couple of shows in New York. We've done countless shows here and elsewhere, but we have been talking about this for a very long time.
Yeah, we first talked about this in the summer of 2019, and I basically said there was a nuclear bomb that was going to drop on college athletics in the next few years, and well, here we are, talking about it right now.
Well, let's talk about what you have been involved with, among other things. If we would intrigue the audience if they knew exactly what Phillip did in his real life. But I know you've been in Tuscaloosa recently. You've been aiding the University of Alabama, a place dear to you, to get prepared for what is now a collective. Give us the backstory.
Yeah, the collective was started by famed Alabama attorney Larry Morris, and there's a businessman also involved named Paul Register, and they kind of had the legal and the business background to start the collective. I met with Coach Saban. He introduced me to the collective, or to these guys. We talked, and now I'm advising them to help market those players with their name, image, and likeness. And so that's sort of my role, is to come in and help them devise a marketing strategy for the players. Look, there's a lot going on right now, and there's a lot of fiction and a lot of fact on what's going on with these collectives everywhere. And I think there's sort of an arms race. And the next 18 to 24 months, we're going to see sort of, when the dust settles, who's left. And with high tide traditions, there's just one collective at the university that the University of Alabama is working with, and that's where we're going to try to maximize the opportunity for the players there. And that's basically the background of it. But I'm happy to kind of get into why it's structured the way it is and the problems that are out there right now.
So for those of us who have not been following this day to day, I know you've alluded to it in your preamble there, but for the layperson, what is this and how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, all these colleges right now are trying to figure out how they set up entities to make sure that their players have an opportunity to make money on their name, image, and likeness. And there are a lot of, it took Alabama a while because they were very thorough in trying to figure out foundationally what do they need to create in order to give them the best advantage for their student athletes and give them an equal opportunity to make money, right? And so there are a lot of, I'll give you some examples. There are collectives out there that are 501c3s, which are basically charitable organizations. And the university looked at this, Larry Morris looked at this and said, this is not the best fit for us because there could be problems down the line with the IRS. And then they moved over to, hey, should there be multiple collectives? Like Virginia Tech announced the other day that there are 3 collectives, and collectives are basically for-profit businesses that are serving as sort of the middle housing agent between the player and the businesses that would do the deals. And the problem with having multiple collectives that represent a university is they're all fighting with each other, and it doesn't serve the player best. And what I was impressed with and why I came on board with High Tide Traditions in Alabama is because there's one collective. It works with the university as far as in a compliance way, but no other way. And, you and I have talked a lot about how I look at marketing and I look at sort of it in a data and analytics world. And I thought there was an opportunity for Alabama to come out of the next 18 to 24 months and be the #1 player in the collective business to helping these players have an equal opportunity to make money.
Chatting with Phillip Stutts about a number of things, including the collective at Alabama. You mentioned you had met with Coach Saban, and I realize you spent plenty of time in the Oval Office, Nick Saban's office. When you go into those offices and come out, you may acknowledge you were there, but rarely do you talk about what you talked about. What can you tell us other than you met with him, if anything?
No, he just gave. Look, if you heard him talk this week to Ralph Russo or to other outlets, it was, that is, I assume, how he feels, right? Compliance and giving players an equal opportunity to make money on their name, image, license. Coach's job is not to develop NIL deals. The collective's job. So he just wants to coach and help them academically and help them. I think coach's job is probably better suited to helping them get $40 million contracts with the NFL than it is to get a $1,000 NIL deal on an autograph session. And so that's where we come in play. That's the role of the collective. And basically, I don't know if I'll talk to him again if that's the case.
And when I alluded to the Oval Office, Phillip has been very involved in what you heard him say in terms of the analytics, but he's also spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. at the very highest levels of government, and now, of course, talking about this Alabama situation. Phillip, there's so much out there that is being thrown around, and I realize your role here is primarily to talk about the Alabama situation, but what do you think are the biggest misunderstandings or mischaracterizations from our side, the media side, in trying to describe this to a lot of people who really don't know what it means, like you do?
Yeah, I saw somebody that was covering the NIL on Twitter the other day said, oh, when Alabama created theirs, it was just another fundraising operation. And so what's happening in a lot of these NIL deals right now is universities their collectives are trying to raise money and then distribute it to players. And I think there's a fatal flaw in that. I think when there's this old saying in politics, Paul, that there are things you can change and there are facts. And the candidate's spouse is a fact. And you're going to have to deal with that husband or that wife no matter what, right? And in this deal, there is a fact that no one is talking about right now. And that is that businesses only operate to make a profit and make money. And while there's a lot of money being raised right now by a lot of desperate schools that want to get to the top of the ladder, ultimately, and the way we're going to focus this collective on the marketing side is we have to work with businesses to ensure that they make money. Because if they make money on the players that they hire, then they're going to keep hiring those players, and the players are going to make more money and maximize their opportunity under the NIL deal. And the short-term play, and there's nothing wrong with what everybody's doing right now, but they're all running out there trying to raise money and just throw stuff at players. Eventually, that is going to crash and burn. One of the examples, this $8 million deal they've talked about. Well, what happens if that player, that recruit for that college, comes in and is a second stringer? It can't make the starting lineup, right? What happens to the players that are seeing that the second stringer is making $2 million a year? So there are inherent problems across the board. And what I'm impressed with, why I'm working with High Tide Traditions is because that's not the approach at all. They see that in 18 to 24 months, the dust is going to settle and what is there. And so we're taking a completely different look at the collective. It's going to be a data and analytics approach. As you know, I work with probably more data than almost any marketer in the world. And if you want, I'll give you an example. I work with a professional sports team who wants to do deals with Alabama players. And they came to me and they said, okay, so here's what we want. We want players that have high social media followings, and we also want players that love our sport. And I said, great. So what we can do now is find a couple players under High Tide Traditions, and then we go back and under the database that we work with, which has 230 million American consumers, 550 million connected devices, we're tracking 10 billion online purchasing decisions every day and 1 trillion searches. I can then tell that professional team, here are the platforms, the social media platforms, the traditional platforms that these players are going to get you the highest ROI. Here is the message that we need the players to say in order for you to have success in the campaign that we're going to run for you on behalf of these players. That's the key. And no one's talking about that right now. How are we benefiting the businesses so the players can maximize their profit potential over time. And that's what we're going to build. And that's, why I'm excited to be part of this effort.
Always an incredible conversation. I just think back to almost 4 years now when you first came on here talking about this. And a lot of us looked at you with our jaws dropping, and we still are to a certain degree, but now that it is a reality. Phillip, be well. Great to see you. Hope to see you soon. Phillip Stutts joining us, talking about the Alabama Collective and the NIL.